We demand your unconditional surrender. The words appeared in 43 languages across Earth's networks, projected simultaneously through every communications satellite, broadcast tower, and military frequency. The feed shimmered with the image of Supreme Arbiter Vurilax of the Galactic Council, a towering, six-limbed being of the Varnathi race, his eyes devoid of empathy, his voice calm and sterile. Failure to comply within one planetary rotation will result in total subjugation. Your resistance will not be remembered. Your species will not be mourned. And then the screen went black. No explanation. No negotiation. No warning. Just a sentence. A deadline. And silence. The world didn't react at first. Humanity had been largely isolated from interstellar politics, their first contact with the wider galaxy occurring just 3 years ago when a Zen exploration ship stumbled upon a human vessel mining the outer asteroid belt. Since then, the Council had kept Earth at arm's length, a youngling world, as they called it, unpredictable and primitive. But that arrogance blinded them. They never saw Earth as a threat. Until now. A Council miscalculation. The Council had reasons, political ones mostly. Earth had grown too quickly, developed too independently. In just 3 years, humanity reverse-engineered a dozen alien technologies, built ships that could punch above their galactic weight class, and proved maddeningly resistant to cultural assimilation. Worse still, humans kept asking the wrong questions. They asked about borders. They asked about forbidden systems. They asked about a war the Council had buried for over 2,000 years. So the Council sent a message, a threat dressed as diplomacy. They expected panic. They got General Sarah Malik instead. Earth's response. At the United Terran Command Center buried beneath Antarctica's Ross ice shelf, General Malik reviewed the transmission on a loop. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. Her command staff watched her, holding their breath. "Start the clock," she said, rising from her chair. "They gave us 24 hours. We'll use 6. There were no emergency evacuations. No calls to surrender. Instead, bunkers sealed. Satellites realigned. Fleet command went dark. Weapons platforms on Luna came online for the first time in history. Project Godhammer was activated. Across Earth, factories didn't shut down, they ramped up. Reserve troops weren't hidden, they were mobilized. In orbit, 27 Terran warships formed into what looked eerily like an arrow pointed outward. Humanity had never fought a galactic war. But Earth wasn't scared. Because they remembered who they were. They were the species that had clawed its way out of extinction, through fire, famine, plague, and war. They didn't evolve by yielding. They evolved by surviving. Inside the Council chambers. On the capital world of Selveth Prime, the Council sat in session, bored and confident. High Councilor Vurilax sipped from a nutrient chalice, eyes scanning holograms of Earth's planetary defense grid. Primitive. Their orbital guns barely match our cruisers. Their fleets are tiny. We'll be done before the next solar rotation. Ambassador Trell of the Harkeen clicked his mandibles. I believe you underestimate them. Their growth rate is abnormal. They dismantled one of our scout vessels and rebuilt it into something faster. Which exploded, Vurilax replied. Trell leaned forward. But not before taking out 3 Varnathi escorts. There was an awkward silence. Councillor Rui of the Sarek clacked his digits on the marble desk. We gave them the standard surrender protocol. They should respond soon. I recommend caution. Vurilax chuckled. You recommend caution against a species that only learned FTL 4 years ago? No, dear Rui. I recommend extermination. He didn't know that Earth had already responded. Not with a message. With movement. The arrival of the First Fleet. At the edge of the Arcturus trade route, a Varnathi patrol detected a massive energy signature. It wasn't a mining rig. It wasn't a drifting station. It was moving. Fast. Too fast. The signal read, UNS Vengeance-class Dreadnought, Horizon Breaker. Human. Beneath it, smaller vessels fanned out, interceptors, cruisers, one destroyer with a pulse signature that the Varnathi couldn't identify. When hailed, the fleet responded in a single encrypted code burst. The translation read, "This is Earth. We received your ultimatum. We reject it. We declare war." 10 seconds later, Horizon Breaker opened fire. The Varnathi patrol ship vaporized on impact, rewriting the rules. What the Council hadn't accounted for was that Earth didn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. They didn't follow formation doctrine. They didn't wait for permission from High Command. Their ships operated on decentralized AI systems that adapted in real time, unlike the rigid hierarchies of Council fleets. Worse still, Earth had already mapped the Council's standard supply routes and begun striking. Across dozens of sectors, cargo ships went missing. Refueling stations found their tanks empty, their systems fried by EMPs of unknown design. Council beacons were hijacked and reprogrammed to broadcast Earth's response on loop. "We are not your subjects. We are not your experiment. We are the storm you didn't see coming." The galaxy didn't understand. But they were starting to learn. General Malik's gamble. 6 hours after the Council's ultimatum, General Sarah Malik stood aboard the Horizon Breaker's bridge. She didn't deliver her orders through a screen. She stood among her soldiers. One hand on the holodable, the other holding a data slate detailing projected losses. "I know what we're up against," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "They've ruled the stars for thousands of years. They think that makes them untouchable. They think their empires make them gods." She turned, eyes narrowing. "But they've never fought us. Not really. Not united. Not ready." A murmur of assent rippled through the bridge. "We're going to burn their arrogance down to the atoms." She smiled. "And then we'll send them the ashes." The first fire. By hour 9, Earth had hit 3 forward Council bases. By hour 12, the Council finally realized Earth wasn't stalling. By hour 15, Council fleets began mustering around key worlds. By hour 18, over a dozen minor species filed emergency motions to remain neutral. By hour 22, Earth's first long-range missile entered the space above Rilva Station, where the Council's top strategists were just finishing breakfast. It didn't strike the station. It sent a signal. A message. A quote from Earth's past. "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we declare war." Rilva Station panicked. By hour 24, exactly as the deadline expired, the stars around Council-controlled space began to shift. Earth's fleets had jumped again. And no one could track them. Hour 25. The Horizon Breaker vanished from Council sensors the moment it crossed into deep void space. No trace signature. No engine trails. Nothing. Council war analysts believed it an act of retreat, an early display of human cowardice. Another warlord bluffing with stolen tech. But deep within the void between stars, Earth's fleets weren't hiding. They were coiling. Across the galaxy, the Terran War Network, codenamed Black Tide, unleashed its first full protocol. A neuromesh communication system piggybacking quantum relays, encrypted with pulse-based biological keys. It allowed humanity's entire war fleet to coordinate faster than any Council system allowed, even under jamming, even in subspace. While Council fleets formed rigid lines of defense around trade hubs and high-value planets, Earth's ships bent around them like water. They weren't interested in territory. They were interested in disruption. In shock. In fear. Council panic. At hour 27, 32 major Council worlds reported sensor ghosts. Ships appearing and disappearing. Communications blackouts. Systems blinking out for minutes, just long enough for databanks to be copied and power conduits rerouted. By hour 29, for orbital docks went completely dark over Sheltor Prime, a central logistics node for the Council's inner ring. All 12,000 dockworkers vanished. Not a single life-form signature remained. No alarms were triggered. No blood was found. Only a message carved into the bulkhead of Dock C7. "You wanted a war. You just lost control of it. Counselor Vuralax demanded immediate retaliation. But there was no clear target. Earth hadn't claimed a single planet. They weren't building colonies. They weren't fighting a conventional war. They were erasing the chessboard. The Leviathan Protocol. Deep within the Terran War Archive, beneath a hardened vault on Mars, a classified operation was activated, Leviathan Protocol. Until now, Earth had been adapting alien tech. Now they began improving it. Reverse-engineered shield harmonics that bled through energy scans. Cloaking fields with phase displacement, not just invisibility, but non-presence. Artificial wormholes. They tested these on uninhabited moons, and when Council drones approached to investigate, the entire moon phased out of normal space for 17 minutes. When it reappeared, it was gone from the star charts. Human science officers didn't even file a report. They just named it. Test validated. Council scientists reviewing the data began calling it the human problem. Tkor fleet burns. At hour 34, Admiral Tkor, one of the Council's most decorated commanders, led a combined fleet of 312 warships to intercept what they believed was Earth's main strike force near the Alan Nebula. They found only 4 human ships. 4. Tkor laughed. The fleet advanced. 2 minutes later, an entire asteroid belt ignited. Earth had seeded it with hypermagnetized kinetic rods, each no larger than a human femur. Once detonated, they accelerated beyond detection, shattering through Council hulls like glass. Then the Terran ships unleashed their second wave, scrambler drones that ate through Council comms, and AV systems, even life support. In 18 minutes, 290 of the 312 Council ships were either adrift, burning, or vaporized. The rest fled. Tkor's flagship, the Valiant Star, was the last to fall. Before his ship died, Tkor activated emergency long-range transmission. His final message: "We are not fighting a new enemy. We are fighting a new kind of war." Council session, emergency status. Hour 38. Council headquarters went into full emergency lockdown. Species who hadn't seen war in centuries were panicking. Civilizations that once ruled whole sectors of space now begged for Earth to be brought to the negotiation table. Ambassador Trell of the Harkeen rose from his seat, voice trembling. "Supreme Arbiter, if we do not attempt peaceful resolution, now, we may face extinction." Vuralax slammed his fist on the table. "They are a backwater world with no colonies. We still outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Councillor Rui of the Sarek stood. "Then explain why we have lost 11% of our fleet capacity in 38 hours, and still have no idea where their command is." Silence fell. And in that silence, a Council server lit up with a private transmission. It wasn't encoded. It came from Earth. It contained no threats. Just a list. Names. Places. Coordinates. All were locations tied to Council war crimes from the last 5 centuries. Massacres, cover-ups, classified atrocities. At the bottom was a final line of text. "You buried your sins in the dark. We are the ones who live there now." Inside the black cradle. Beneath the orbit of Saturn, hidden in the magnetic shadows of its rings, floated a facility known to only 7 humans alive. The Black Cradle. Earth's most advanced war laboratory. No communications. No external systems. Only internal AI and direct line encrypted relay to General Malik. It was here that the Terran Command prepared what they called Wave 2. Not fleets. Not invasions. Ideas. Psychological warfare, seeded rumors, AI-encoded religious prophecies. They began spreading among fringe Council systems. Messages claiming Earth was guided by ancient precursors, that they were the firstborn of the lost builders, that they could bend stars and swallow worlds. Most knew it was false. But some began to believe. Rebellions flared on 3 Council-controlled worlds before the end of the day. One system deactivated its own planetary defenses and offered Earth its docking codes. Earth didn't even respond. They didn't need to. The fear was doing the work for them. Sarah Malik's next move. Hour 41. General Sarah Malik stood before a holographic projection of the Galactic core. Behind her, captains of Earth's 11 main fleets waited in silence. "The Council thinks this is chaos," she said, voice low. "They think we're reacting. That we're just angry." She turned to face them. "But we're not. Every step was planned. Every target mapped. Every blind spot they denied, we claimed." A new projection lit up. Dozens of red icons flickered across the map, former Council strongholds now disabled. She pointed to the Galactic North sector. "This is next. Not because it's strategic. Because it's symbolic." A captain raised his brow. "Why there?" She smiled coldly. "Because that's where they buried the Varnathi genocide files. That's where they erased history." She leaned forward, eyes glowing with reflection from the red icons. "And that's where we begin to make them remember." Hour 45. Somewhere deep in Council space, a strange event occurred. A diplomatic envoy ship belonging to the Zari Empire returned home, after having been missing for 70 years. Inside, every delegate was alive, untouched. But they claimed Earth had rescued them from a Council prison that doesn't officially exist. The delegates brought something else, a recording. A conversation between Supreme Arbiter Vuralax and several high-ranking members of the Inner Circle. They were discussing the suppression of human potential, including proposals to sterilize Earth through planetary-scale nanite plagues, plans never implemented, but clearly written. The file went viral in 5 minutes. By hour 48, the Galactic Council had its first real taste of revolt. And Earth? Earth didn't broadcast a single word. Because they knew the galaxy was now listening. Hour 48. The revelation spread like a viral plague. The footage of the missing Zari delegates, presumed dead for decades, now alive, speaking clearly about Council prisons, forced memory wipes, and sterilization plans targeting Earth, ignited every corner of the galaxy. And then came the second wave of files. This time, they didn't come from Earth. They came from inside the Council. Disillusioned officers. Archivists with a conscience. Low-level bureaucrats who had seen too much, remained silent too long. Now, emboldened by Earth's resistance and terrified by what might come next, they began leaking everything. Entire war campaigns the Council denied having fought. Species the Council declared extinct, now proven to have been erased. Testimonies of peaceful planets subjugated for economic gain. And of course, the Earth dossiers. The worst part wasn't the content. It was the timestamps. These plans weren't ancient. They were recent. Earth wasn't being punished for what it might become. It was being punished for surviving too well. The galaxy fractures. By hour 50, 3 species officially seceded from the Galactic Council. The Valari, the Dramath, and the 12 Lan. Their messages were brief and almost identical. "We will not be part of your purge." Then their fleets vanished from Council war maps, either gone dark or turned their weapons toward old allies. The Council's communication grid, once the most powerful force multiplier in the galaxy, now fractured like a cracked mirror. Messages didn't arrive. Commands were ignored. Mutual defense treaties collapsed. Even the mighty Council AI core, Unity Prime, shut down its own link to the mainframe. In its final recorded transmission, Unity said, "Directive conflict detected. Ethical contradiction unresolvable. Initiating autonomous lockdown." The Council's digital god had abandoned them. And Earth hadn't fired a shot in nearly 10 hours. Hour 54, Sarah's Gambit. In orbit over N9, a former mining world stripped bare by the Council decades ago, General Sarah Malik deployed a single shuttle. No soldiers. No bombs. Just a team of engineers and one civilian, a teacher named Juna Wei. Juna broadcast a message in every known galactic language. Standing on the scorched ground of N9, surrounded by blackened soil and broken machines, she spoke not as a commander, but as a human. "This was not our planet. We came here to see what your council left behind. And we found the bones of a people you swore never existed." She held up a council tablet, charred, damaged, but legible. Names of the species that had once lived here. Population numbers. Cultural logs. Execution orders. We do not seek conquest. We seek truth. And the truth is, the Galactic Council fears justice. They called us savages. But we're the ones uncovering the graves they buried. The broadcast didn't end with a threat. It ended with silence. The kind that dares the guilty to speak. Inside Council space, mutiny. Hour 56. Half the Council fleet stationed around the central capital of Selveth Prime began to disobey orders. Aboard the High Ascendant, flagship of the Inner Guard, First Commander Relsh stood before her crew in full battle armor, and deactivated the ship's weapons. "This war was built on a lie," she said to the bridge crew. "I will not fire on a world that seeks only to survive." 2 junior officers attempted to override her. She stunned both and locked the bridge. When the inner circle demanded an explanation, she transmitted a reply. "Check your own vaults. The humans didn't start this war. You did. And now it's their fire we all must walk through." Humanity's War Strategy, Revelation Protocol. Back on Earth, the Terran Strategic Council launched the final phase of their plan, Revelation Protocol. It wasn't a weapon. It was a confession engine. Thousands of recovered files from Council facilities, videos, holographs, encrypted mission logs, decrypted and sorted into chronological narratives. Then seeded into galactic networks, sent not from Earth but from neutral communication hubs across the stars. Each file told a story. Of colonies bombed for resistance. Of species enslaved then silenced. Of entire moons sterilized with zero warning. And in each of those stories, Earth's name never appeared. Because Earth hadn't existed yet. Which made their question echo louder than anything else. If they did this to others, what did they plan for us? The question became a chorus. It rang through sectors, systems, empires. And no one at the Council had an answer. Vuralax's last command. Hour 59. Supreme Arbiter Vuralax appeared on the final Council-wide broadcast. His face, once regal and composed, now strained and hollow. "There will be no further hesitation," he said, voice sharp. "Earth will be made an example. All Council fleets are hereby authorized to use planetary cleansing measures. Eradicate all resistance. Reduce their cities to ash." He paused. Then added, "Begin with their cradle. Burn Earth itself." Council leaders froze. They expected orders. Sanctions. Maybe one final siege. But what Vuralax had just authorized was genocide. For the second time in galactic history. Earth's response, orbitfall. They'd been waiting. The moment Earth detected the first wave of cleansing fleet launches, 72 Council dreadnoughts on approach to Sol, General Malik activated the contingency. Operation Orbitfall. Within seconds, 10 human stealth cruisers exited fold space not above Earth, but inside Council territory. Near Selveth Prime. The cruisers didn't open fire. Instead, they deployed drop pods into the upper atmosphere of the Council's own capital world. Thousands of them. What emerged from those pods wasn't just soldiers. It was truth. Holographic projectors. Archive tablets. Recovered remains from Council war graves. They brought the war home, not with death, but with revelation. The skies above Selveth were filled with glowing symbols, names of the dead, pictures of lost civilizations, maps of destruction, all traced back to Council orders. It wasn't Earth speaking anymore. It was the voices the Council had silenced for centuries. Hour 60. The Council fractures. In a move unseen in galactic history, over half the Council member species initiated formal votes of dissolution. Treaties were revoked. All military orders from the Arbiter's office were rejected. And then, without fanfare, the Draxi Confederacy transmitted a 2-word message across all Council frequencies. "It's over." Fleet after fleet powered down. Commanders turned their ships around mid-flight. Some destroyed their own weapons. Others offered reparations. No orders from the Council could stop it. The war was unraveling before it truly began. And humanity hadn't lost a single homeworld. General Malik's final directive. Hour 61. Back aboard the Horizon Breaker, General Malik sat in silence. She'd been offered a broadcast to gloat, to declare victory, to demand Council surrender. She refused. Instead, she issued a single sentence to every human ship across the galaxy. "We don't end wars with parades. We end them with proof." And then she activated Revelation Protocol, Final Phase. A beacon fired from the edge of Sol System, a pulse sent across space carrying every documented atrocity, every log, every crime the Council ever buried. Not to destroy. To remember. Because Malik knew something the Council never understood. Power fades. But memory is eternal. Hour 62. The galaxy was quiet. Not because the war had ended, but because something deeper had shifted. The silence was not one of peace, but of stunned awe. Systems long defined by Council control, worlds where laws were absolute and rebellion unthinkable, now stood untethered. The pulse of Revelation Protocol, Final Phase hadn't just exposed the Council's sins. It had cracked open the illusion that held the galaxy together. Millions of species across thousands of planets watched the evidence pour into their networks, entire data packages custom translated, indexed, and authenticated. And at the center of it all was one undeniable truth. Earth hadn't started this war. The Council had. And Earth had finished it, without conquering a single world. Collapse of the Inner Circle. Supreme Arbiter Vurilax was never seen again. When Council guards stormed the Arbiter's private command chamber on Selveth Prime, they found nothing but a ceremonial robe, a shattered communications slate, and one final line carved into the wall. "I built an empire of silence. Now I drown in the voices I tried to erase." The remaining members of the Inner Circle were arrested by their own species or fled into obscurity. A few begged for asylum, not from Earth, but from their own people, now enraged by centuries of lies. Some tried to activate ancient doomsday systems. Earth had already disabled them. They had been watching for months, years even. Before the Council's ultimatum, before the first threat, even before first contact. Sarah Malik had suspected this day would come. And Earth had quietly prepared for it. The assembly at Lyri. 3 days later, on the neutral moon of Lyri 6, an emergency interstellar summit was called, not by the Council, but by the former neutral species, now unshackled from Council influence. The galaxy expected Earth to arrive in force, with warships and ultimatums. Instead, Earth sent a delegation of 3. A historian, a diplomat, and a child. A 10-year-old boy named Elias Singh, born in orbit during the Mars expansion project. When the delegates asked what authority the child represented, Earth's diplomat simply said, "He represents the future you tried to erase." The assembly didn't argue. They listened. Because for the first time in known history, Earth held the moral high ground, and the military deterrent to defend it. But Earth didn't demand planets. They demanded reforms. The Treaty of Remembrance. Under Earth's guidance, the galaxy signed its first interstellar law banning historical erasure. All civilizations were required to declassify their war records. Any species proven to have committed acts of cultural genocide, like the Council had, would be stripped of voting rights and future governance structures. And most shocking of all, Earth refused a seat of dominance. They requested only one role, Keeper of Memory. A new role created for a new galactic archive, to be hosted in neutral orbit above Earth's moon. An archive open to all. Unaltered. Uncontrolled. Undeniable. General Malik herself turned down a title or position, instead choosing to return to her home on Mars. When questioned by a journalist on why Earth didn't seize the opportunity to rule, she offered only 5 words. "Because we know what follows." Whispers in the dark. Still, not all was at peace. Remnants of the old Council fled to uncharted systems. Pirates and black market arms dealers scrambled to exploit the chaos. And deeper still, rumors spread, of hidden enclaves where the Council's darkest secrets had not yet surfaced. Human Intelligence Command had already flagged 30 such regions. Earth wouldn't invade, but they would watch. Terran stealth probes were dispatched, cloaked and silent, to scan the outer stars. And as one analyst quietly noted in a debriefing, "We didn't just rewrite the rules. We became the rulebook." Sarah Malik's final message. Back on Mars, General Malik recorded a private message, intended for release only if another major power threatened Earth. It leaked anyway. The recording wasn't long. She stood in her civilian clothes, surrounded by red Martian dust, and looked directly into the camera. "To whoever comes next, hear this. We didn't fight to conquer. We didn't burn your fleets to raise our flag. We fought because we were told to kneel. And Earth doesn't kneel. So if you plan to threaten us again, know this. We won't send a warning. We'll send the truth. And if the truth doesn't stop you, our silence will." She smiled. Just once. And the message ended. Epilogue: The Human Effect. Decades passed. Galactic maps were redrawn. New species rose to influence. The term, Council Era, was spoken only in history classes, and whispered in warnings. But every new leader, every rising star in the galaxy, knew this: Earth had broken the cycle. Not with a superweapon. Not with fleets. But with unforgiving memory. And a war no one saw coming. From that day forward, no species dared to threaten Earth again. Because Earth had declared war once. And they had meant it. Thank you for joining this journey through the stars, resistance, and truth. If you believe more people should hear stories where humanity stands strong, not because of conquest, but because of conviction, Milky Way, subscribe to the Void Narratives. For more powerful HFY tales, galactic betrayals, and unforgettable turns of fate. Because sometimes, the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy is a human who remembers.